If you've ever felt like giving up on your creative pursuits, this one's for you. There was a time when I thought I was done with music. I never said the words I quit, but I felt them. Still, I knew that I was a creative person, and so the only way that I would be able to function in this world would be through some form of creativity. So let me back up and give you a little bit of background first. At the time, I was living in New York trying to be an active part of the jazz scene. And if you're a jazz musician, you can't really do any better than New York City. It can be exhilarating and overwhelming. There are so many amazing musicians there, all trying to be better than they were the day before, everyone working on developing their own thing. It's inspiring. However, it's an incredibly expensive place to live, and unfortunately, talent doesn't pay the rent. So I would take every gig that came my way for a while, no matter how little it paid or who it was with or how far I had to drive. At first, it's all about gaining experience and connecting with as many musicians as possible. And there's a lot to be said for that approach. I mean, someone who calls you with a crappy gig today might have an amazing gig next month. Someone who we feel like maybe isn't playing on our level now might be practicing hard and improve dramatically overnight. It's kind of like you're investing in relationships that could potentially pay off in the future. But it became obvious that even if I played every night of the week, I would still come up short with the rent. Every year the rent went up, but the gigs paid the same. I started temping, doing office jobs, which enabled me to say no to some of the less desirable gigs. Eventually, I found my way to graphic design and was working enough to pay the rent and feel like I wasn't losing my soul. But I was still trying to be a musician most of the time, playing 4 to 5 nights a week, doing rehearsals during the day, and staying up late at night to do client work for graphic design. Burning the candle at both ends doesn't begin to describe what I put myself through. It was around this time that the idea of moving to Europe came up. We had been doing occasional tours there, and it felt so good to be there and play in nice venues and feel more appreciated. Then one night I snapped. I had been playing every week with a friend of mine, an incredible pianist, who had a gig across the street from Carnegie Hall. They had us set up in a loft above the restaurant, which kind of created this disconnect with all the people. And I think a lot of people didn't even realize we were playing. They just thought we were a recording coming from the stereo. Almost no one clapped, ever, in the 15 to 20 times that I played there. And so I started to feel a kind of disconnect. I'm not bragging, but the guys I was playing with are world-class musicians. But it was like it didn't matter. No one noticed. And as we played each time, I would look out the window at Carnegie Hall and see the concert goers coming and going in their suits and dresses, mingling out on the sidewalk, while we were right there, hundreds of music lovers, feet away from us, but we couldn't reach them. Instead, there we were, playing in this restaurant for people that didn't even know we existed. It just started raining. But I'm going to keep going. But there was something about that contrast between this legendary concert hall being so close and yet miles away in every other regard. So the last time I played there, it felt like something broke inside me. I remember lugging my drums home on the sidewalk. I called my wife and I said, "I'm ready to leave." But inside, it felt like I was done with music. Enough. You win. I never said it out loud, but I guess this was my version of quiet quitting. I was pretty deep into graphic design by then and feeling like, who needs an audience? I can make cool stuff in my apartment and feel good about myself and not have to be ignored and not have to schlep my drums across town. And so we moved to Iceland. My wife is Icelandic, if you didn't know. Otherwise, that would be pretty random. But of course, nothing ever goes the way you think it will. I had envisioned moving to Iceland and opening up a design studio. And, oh, by the way, my wife also has a master's degree in design. So I had this idea of being this hotshot design power couple in my mind. I'm not going to go into more detail about it, but several things happened that made that hotshot design couple idea seem more and more unlikely. I'll just say that music pulled me back in. I never told anyone that I quit, but I was definitely putting out that vibe. And despite my best efforts, people called. The Icelandic scene was excited to have a new drummer in town, and my own ideas kept calling. I was still writing music. My ideas didn't care whether I played or not. They came. They came just the same. Wait, that sounds like Dr. Seuss. Is that from, I think that's from The Grinch. So I realized I am a musician. I was a musician before I could play. I knew from a very early age it wasn't a decision, it was a need. It was an expression of my very being. So instead of quitting, what I needed to do was figure out a way to function in this world which would allow me to survive financially while thriving creatively. And I feel like I kind of figured it out. I teach drums 3 days a week, which allows me 4 days a week to focus on my own creativity and my family. It's flexible enough that I can still tour occasionally, and it gives me just enough structure so that I feel grounded. Oh, and paid summer vacations. Sweet. So I didn't quit music, but if I had stayed in New York, I would definitely have stopped doing that gig and started doing more design work. I guess what I'm trying to say is if you're feeling like you need to quit, step back and ask yourself, is that really the best solution? Or is it finding a way around those specific things that are making you feel that way? Sometimes the best way forward is to eliminate or at least minimize the pain points that are at the root of our feelings. Or just move to Iceland. We have plenty of room. So that's all I've got for today. I'm sorry it's a short one this time. I'm traveling, so I'm just trying to get my ideas out there quickly. Please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And stop by my Patreon page to catch up on Hiking with Penny. And full disclosure, I'll be reunited with Penny next month. So it's on a slight hiatus until then. I'll catch you in the next episode. Until then, keep the flow.